Alright, so we should be streaming. This is episode 1 of World War Weeb, where weebs hang out and war over things, which is
Is this
a
the
tagline that
end?
I'm not sticking to, I'm not married to, and will probably change when something better comes along.
Damn.
Like, we probably should change it, dude.
Probably.
I keep saying otaku lips, dude. Or
Mm.
is that the other one?
World War Weeb Attacalypse.
That sounds like
But then
that sounds like a great movie sequel. World War Weeb's Otaku Lips.
It
Otaku
yes,
Lips
but then
Yeah.
it
Rising.
sounds like some sort of otaku is like coming at you to give you a nice big mooch.
Yeah, so it's just like Apocalypse, and then we got
And it
Otaku
sounds
Lips.
so
And we
gross.
got like Otaku Lips Uprising.
Okay,
Well,
there
the,
you go. That's better.
The fun part is the fact that at the beginning of each of these streams, we are going to start with some bad fan fiction. And I found what I believe is some Naruto fan fiction called True
Oh,
Beauty.
Mm.
So here goes the dramatic reading.
As Naruto twists Sasuke's Sharingan.
Oh my god.
Oh boy.
Oh, there's a disclaimer at the top.
Oh, lovely.
Naruto X Vanilla Ice do not read if not into yaoi.
Excuse me, all I heard was Vanilla Ice. Read if you're not into yaoi.
Yeah,
What
apparently.
about Ninja Rap?
All I heard was something about Vanilla Ice, something yaoi.
Yeah.
Don't hear it either. Don't even look at it. Your eyes will bleed.
I'm gonna stop when it gets too much for streaming, but I'm gonna try. It's a crisp
Alright.
summer's morning. I hear the voice of my Spice Girls alarm clock ring, and I fumble around until I manage to find the off button.
Hey, is it okay if you can send the link?
Oh,
in
yeah,
the-
yeah, yeah.
In the general chat. I want to see if I could be a part of this as well in somewhere.
Yeah, I'm gonna send it to the Discord chat.
Okay. Spice Girls alarm clock. That's a thing.
Apparently. Oh, sorry about that. Where are my manners? Let me introduce myself.
Mm.
Ohio, my name is
Yeah.
Naruto Uzumaki, and I go to Karakurumi High School in Tokyo. Did Naruto go to high school? I don't think he
I
did.
don't know. I think I could. Can I try to read this in my weird Sonic voice?
Well,
Okay, let's see. Ohio, my name is Naruto Uzumaki, and I go to Karakurumi High School in Tokyo. I'm 16 years old, and I'm currently living with my papa in Onisan.
But he
I
doesn't
died
have a
of-
brother. I don't understand.
I kind of died a bit when I read that part. I have to go to school today. I'm really dreading it. You see, I'm not the most Sugoi boy in high school. I'm not exactly unpopular, but I get picked on occasionally by a group of baka boys.
This
I really
has to
hope
be
they leave me
parody.
alone today.
You know, I hope he ironed out that skirt very well. Or else they're just gonna
God.
be with him all day long.
I think I regret this. I'm not like most boys, because I'm a girl. Let's see. I'm not like most boys. Sometimes I get weird thoughts and strange feelings. I suspect the bullies pick up on that. And when they call me gay, I always deny no matter what. I'm just so confused. Crap, I'm late. I gotta go to school quick.
Believe
Damn
it.
you, Naruto, get out of that
Believe
damn
it.
closet right now, or so help me.
Believe it.
If he doesn't
Oh,
show up in a
man.
schoolgirl's outfit, I'm going to flip. The guy gets to school's like, oh god, I forgot my pants.
It was all a
just think of
dream.
everybody naked.
God,
was all a
that
dream.
sounds like the film all film students make. Just the go to school late and then find out there's no school that day. That is the one thing that all film students make at some point in their lives, and I don't understand why.
I don't know why.
They don't have to think, that's why. The
You
idea is
don't
there.
pay attention.
Well,
Yes,
that
Want me to continue, or do you want to
no,
stop?
I think that's enough of that fanfic today.
All right, it's only
yeah.
the.
No.
Stay
Nar-
tuned next
wait.
time for chapter
Oh
1,
god.
Some
Oh
Say
wait, I
Love
thought it was like
is
some
a
Naruto
River.
X Sasuke. No, Naruto X Vanilla Ice,
Yep.
like the singer.
Yep.
Oh, heck no.
I think that
He
explains.
wait, let me just read a part of this part. Let me just
All
oh
right.
no. It's like, oh no, wait. Now, class, I'd like to introduce you to a new student we have today. He's a transfer from America. So I want you all to be extra nice to him. Everyone say hello to Vanilla San.
Oh,
Yeah, if
hello,
someone
Vanilla
came to
San.
your class and said their name is Vanilla, what would you say? What
So
would you
is
think?
that like vanilla,
smack him
like
in the
the ice
face.
cream, or
Like
like?
vanilla ice, like the ice
Yeah,
cream cone.
no, I got that, but I'm just saying I can see one of the students just raising their hands. Like, so is that like vanilla, like the ice cream,
It's
or?
vanilla
I'm
like
like the
vanilla
rapper.
ice.
I'm very
Yeah,
I don't
and
know
confused
why
by the
people
let me
keep
whole
say,
saying
I'm going to
honky,
use
but
the term rapper lightly. Listen, though, he looked really handsome, though. His hair was as square as most of his perfect cubes, and his eyes sparkled in the sunlight. He was wearing a leather jacket with the words written all over it, like ice, and deep in the back it said down by law. I didn't know what it meant, but he seemed like he was a really profound person, sure. He had teeth as white and as majestic as pearls of the ocean.
okay, this
Okay.
100% has to be. It has to be a joke.
This is
Yo,
What was
like
this
homies, I
person?
be chilling with
yeah.
you for the rest of the semester.
What's going through the writer's mind as they're writing this? I mean,
I
who do
feel
you
like
think?
this is
Let
just
my
I
fan
feel like this
fiction
is
be
just a
worse
weird
than my
love
immortal.
letter. I feel
This
like
is
this is just like a weird love letter to Vanilla Ice.
no, this is what you call a joke. It's called a
Hopefully it
sarcastic
is.
Yeah,
joke.
I mean,
But
it
We'll
definitely
just see.
sounds like they're purposefully hitting all the marks of cringiness. Like they seem to know what they're talking about.
Jesus.
Because he
51.
didn't have
This
weapons.
isn't my immortal. This is not my immortal. This is a joke. It has to be.
Yeah. Well, next time we'll try to have some some real bad fan fiction.
The
Sonic
weeds.
And
Harem.
possibly some more organization.
All right. So, moving on from fan fiction, let's get to our topic for today, which I was going to make it about Yu Yu Hakusho, but I was reminded that we should probably try to keep it relevant at least a little bit.
Yu Hakusho talking
Yeah.
anime. What?
Let's try to focus on anime that might
Watch
have.
Yu Yu Hakusho if you haven't. Whoever's listening.
Yeah, no, seriously. Yu Yu Hakusho is
It's
very
good.
important, and if you're not watching it, then you were not loved as a
All I
child.
know is that there's Pompadour dude that gets his butt whooped by some kid,
Oh
and
yeah,
then the
it's
main
Kuwabara.
character is like, my friend, and then he turns into like this thing. It's like, wait a minute, I turned into the one thing I hate the most. Oh no, or something like that.
Oh my god. So
Oh my god.
so anyway,
He kills him, and then they're gonna kill me. Oh my god. Okay.
so today's
Yeah.
prompt is actually going to be, and if you haven't seen the anime, sorry about that, but is Goblin Slayer profound or just another basic fantasy anime?
Aha.
I have
Okay,
not
so
seen it.
Goblin.
I have seen Goblin Slayer, and I wouldn't really say it's I mean profound, but compared to a bunch of the fantasy anime that I've seen or so heard of, I could understand how it seems to have its like 15 minutes of fame above the rest for that time.
Just like Haruhi Suzumiya.
Oof.
Yeah, a
Gosh.
lot of people really did get very into that.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
one of them. Well, I'm not into it. I mean, I
Hmm.
liked it, but I didn't think it was like the greatest thing in the world. It had its nice moments. But back to Goblin Slayer.
Yeah,
I mean,
personally, sorry, go ahead.
eh, no, it's all right.
Well,
No, it's
yeah,
just like when Goblin Slayer first, aired, the only thing that was talked about, of course, was that first episode. And for those who, like, even if for people that haven't seen Goblin Slayer, they would have heard of Goblin Slayer at one point because of the first episode and
Yeah.
how that caused some trouble for a little bit.
yeah.
Well, then that goes into the argument. Is it that controversy causes more public exposure? Does that actually help the
I
anime when
mean,
you do that? Or is it actually hurting it? Because a lot of
well,
people tend to do that with the intention of hurting the actual anime, but then it ultimately ends up helping the exposure of that anime. And I think a lot of people don't understand that concept.
Well, the side that actually were trying to hurt it, they didn't even watch anime to begin with, in my opinion.
Right,
So it's
because
like,
you hear about it and then you go, hey, I don't like this idea. Maybe I'll go watch it anyway because I don't like that they're putting that out. Oh, I
oh,
have to
the
go see this
goblins
because
are
I have to
actually
see what everybody's talking about.
I mean,
Yeah, the
yeah,
mere exposure
it's
goblins
like,
effect.
are actually bad.
of-
They're actually a bad force. They actually have menace to them. They do things that you haven't seen in an anime besides a hentai. It's like, what the hell? I mean,
huh.
it's the thing is, they're actually menacing. There's a reason why you hate the goblins.
Yeah, and I think that's very important. Like, whether you think it's deep or not, I think it does handle its monsters better than a lot of fantasy, not just anime, just fantasy in general these days. It
Yeah,
just kind of portrays goblins as basically slimes. Like, they're there and, you kill them, whatever. But this actually shows, no, goblins are fucking horrible. And while the grand narrative, like, there is a legit hero, like, saving the fucking world, and that's just a character that people talk about and you see once or twice in the anime. But the main character focuses on the goblins because of personal trauma. And it just
yeah.
shows that, yeah, to some people, they may just be, just goblins. But if you don't make your monsters monstrous, then there's not much there.
Right, and by that argument, you could also say that when you have these women that go in and are completely traumatized and never want to do anything again, then you have the opposite of that scale, which is the Goblin Slayer, who decides to face his trauma as opposed to letting it get to him.
Right.
Yeah.
Though I do
Um,
have to say, and I do have to criticize the Goblin Slayer. He's Christian Bale. He's friggin' Bale.
I'm
I
Batman.
mean,
I mean, and what makes it even worse though is he's just like he's almost like that old man on the hill who is completely
huh,
obsessed with goblins. I mean, I get the concept, I get that they're monstrous, but at the end of the day, that's all he's concerned about. He
huh. I
eats,
mean,
sleeps, and breathes goblins.
I mean,
The
kind of.
first
But I just want to
goblins
like
kill.
backpedal a bit about what you said when it comes to like when something gets exposure, even if it might be for the right or wrong reasons. Since Goblin Slayer is like a series of episodes, many people would check out the first episode, but at the same time, it's like many people have different opinions and
Hmm.
have different levels on what kind of stuff that they would want to watch. So of course the first episode will take many people by surprise, but the people that want to see what happens next,
Hmm.
Will stay.
an introduction of the main character, it might actually help out because more people are willing to see what happens in anime, and if people end up actually liking it, then there might be a chance where there's a good exposure of the anime. you know of course there will be problems because not every series is perfect, but at the same time, if it might get a chance of having better exposure on the second half in the series than the first half.
Yeah.
There's also the element that overexposure can lead to unrealistic expectations or false expectations.
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
I
while
don't know
that's
much about this
true,
show.
this
I haven't
wasn't
seen.
really exposure that was caused by the actual creators. This is exposure that was spread about through rumors on the internet from average viewers
Exactly,
Right,
that's what I was
who were
talking
because
just
about.
they
pissed.
very
So that's not
quickly kind of blew their load with the whole, oh yeah, by the way, goblins rape. It's a thing, guys.
right.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And then, so
Don't
that
worry
left
about
it
it.
up to
Goblins
the
just
viewer to make up their mind as to whether it was good or bad. It wasn't just like oh, this is terrible or this is a great anime. This was just oh my god, there's controversy around it. What should we do? Should we go watch it?
it's
Let's see
more
what
like
all the hype is.
Well, I
It's
mean,
like
to
a
be fair,
train.
that's what got me watching Shield Hero in the first place, was seeing all the controversy. I was like, okay, so if these
Or the
yeah,
specific
and
seasons
that's
people are
kind
about.
of
getting
the
triggered by
situation that
this,
surrounds.
it might be good.
Yeah,
And it turned out
it
like I'm
pushed.
really glad because it's
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah,
Right, and that's how a lot of people view their anime. They listen to their friends,
Hmm.
they try and see what they like and what they don't like and go by that. And it's harder and
Because-
harder to find a good anime these days.
It really
I mean,
Really
is.
think about it.
Because
Because
I
then-
mean, when it comes to like pushing myself to watch new anime, most of the time I usually get it when it comes to like, anime, like YouTubers that review anime or talk about anime that's like that's like being talked about. So then it's like after I hear the synopsis, like how he said that's how he managed to get himself into Shield Hero, hearing this like how the story went and like this man is being accused for something horrible and he has to like try to find a way to clear his name even though the only people that are there at that time is the princess that try to ruin him. And then like for me, the one thing that I hate the most is when people blame innocent people for things that they didn't do and basically it just ruins their life. So when I saw episode 21 of Shield Hero, I was just like, yes, okay, finally. Good
Is that the
God.
one where their heads were gonna be cut off? I only
Yeah,
saw
when they had the
clips.
trial.
Yep.
Oh, that was funny.
Yeah,
I didn't really watch the show. I've seen bits of it.
yeah.
Actually, the first episode did kind of put me off because I saw that the boy he was transported to a magical world by a book, and I thought, I've seen this plot device so many times.
But see,
it's so
that's the thing
cliche.
is
I mean,
because
yeah, but it's like
every other hero of the four cardinal heroes have that great experience of every other isekai anime protagonist. And then there's the shield hero who gets it all torn away from him so that he's at the very bottom, so Rising of the Shield Hero makes sense as a title.
all right.
Yes, it does. But I'm just saying, at face value, it did not look good to me. But I've
Yeah.
heard bits and bobs of it, and
Mhm.
I've seen clips. I thought, I gotta give this another chance. Maybe that first episode just had one thing I didn't like, that one cliche, but maybe the rest may
Right,
make
which
up for it.
leads us back to Goblin Slayer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think, well, he's all about goblins and it's only goblins, so that's just going to get boring, right? Well, no, he's not the only character in the anime, and they gain
Right.
more characters as they go along, and he starts to evolve as a character. So near the end of the
Yeah.
first season, you start to realize, okay, one, I understand why you're so gung-ho about goblins, but two, he might start fighting things that are not goblins, and he does fight things that are not goblins, and he finds ways to justify fighting these non-goblins.
Right,
Yeah.
which also could be part of his trauma.
Yep.
So he's fighting his trauma, but yet he's not completely over it. Which leads us back to this question of, is it profound or is it just randomness?
But one of the things that I do like to mention when it comes to that is that people judge when it comes to like series like these, people judge too quickly. And you see, of course, since it's just the first episode, there's only so much that you could put into a first episode before people might say it would either be too much or like there would be people that would say the plot of something might be too rushed or something might be paced too slowly. So that's when people decide to drop a series that might actually have some potential along the way. So when the thing actually becomes popular, people would give it a second chance. But I just hope that, when it comes to series like Goblin Slayer or anything that might have, a cliche plot at the beginning, but they managed to put a different twist to it that makes it stand out in front of the other genres of anime or other animes in that specific genre. So it's like I'm glad I managed to push myself into watching Goblin Slayer because of course it's like after that first episode, it's like for me it was just like wow, but it's interesting enough for me to see what happens next and how is this one person going to move on from what they just witnessed.
Right, now let's go to a question that I've been really wanting to ask. Do the characters actually matter in the show?
It's a
Because if you
very
really
character-driven
think about
show. The characters matter more than anything else in the show.
I mean, both yes and no, because if you really look at it, the gods could be seen as just a couple of nerds in the basement playing D&D. They
I mean,
have
that is
stated
what's
several times
implied.
over.
Yeah.
So, yes, the characters matter, but at the same time, if you look at how they act, it seems like they were really, really poorly constructed. Like Goblin Slayer. He's just completely obsessed with killing goblins.
Hmm. Well, I
And that
mean,
that is your stereotypical oversimplified D&D character that you threw
Right.
together one night. And I think
yeah,
that's partly the point.
Right, and it makes it great.
It
yeah,
does.
There's an underlying sarcastic sense of humor to the story.
Yeah, and
Because
it makes me personally wonder like how real, and I think you probably spawned this you spawned the memory for me, because all I was remembering up until you brought that up was I really enjoy the characters, and there's a lot of really deep stuff, at least with the characters. Like, they were done very well, I think. But when you bring that up, it does remind me of how much of them is supposed to be cliche versus not. But at the same time, I think it's a bit of both.
and hopefully you don't mind me butting in for a sec
Oh, go ahead.
because as as of now, Goblin Slayer only has one season, correct?
Right.
yes.
Yep.
How many episodes are in that season? Like
12.
10, 12?
Yeah.
Because you see, when it comes to series like that, when it comes to like, a short popular series like that, I think one of the things that I pay attention to the most is how much focus that they would put on each of the characters. Because as of Goblin Slayer, besides, all the background characters, the main crew of the story usually consists of like how many, like maybe six, seven people. So then it's like the anime tries to find a way to, like, let's say, give each character enough screen time so at least we know, the type of character that one is.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, they're just going to be like, a cardboard cutout in the background that only like comes in as like a support when it's needed.
Right, and that was my major issue was because when you go back to the three that were added later, there's really not too much character development. They're just more
Mm.
like
Yeah, they were just like
backup
the
and
Three
support.
Stooges. Like, as soon as it's like, hey, like, we're just gonna introduce these three characters right now, and that's basically how they're going to be for the rest of the series. Because since the series usually focuses more on the Goblin Slayer and the young girl, I forgot her name, but it's
The
just like,
cleric.
Priestess,
yeah,
I think, is the way she goes in the. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she just goes by Priestess. Like, they all call each other by their profession, which
right,
again is very much like a lot of D&D groups. So, is it just
right.
me, or
So,
is this a
yeah.
better D&D anime than any other attempt at making a D&D anime
It
before?
is.
I,
Oh, it
I
is
wouldn't
because
know.
honestly,
Apart from Log
its
Horizon,
surface.
which was very intricate as well, this is.
Now, Log Horizon
by
was
the way,
good, but I don't think it was D&D really. I think it was more.
It wasn't, but they got into the
It
politics
was
of the
like,
world.
yeah, it was more like. Well, it was more like, I can't think of another one, so please forgive me for being quote unquote that guy, but it's a lot like RuneScape or
yeah.
MMOs like that. And I know
Well,
people
it's
are gonna hate
okay.
me
My
for
knowledge,
bringing that
my
up.
knowledge on my knowledge on that kind of stuff is not that great either. And by the way, Orphan, your mic for me is a bit quiet.
Yeah, it's kind of quiet for me as well.
How about now? Is that better?
There we go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's much better. And
Yeah,
like,
that's move the mic a bit.
because I feel like Goblin Slayer is like one of those anime. It's like one of those things where people compare, certain things in a game or in a show to something that's like completely different, but when you put like the small pieces together, it's like I understand why it's kind of like that, and how that anime ends up being more of that thing than anything that it tries to attempt to being that thing.
Right, which brings me back to why I brought that up. So
Yeah.
the reason why I brought up the theory about it actually just being that the gods are just playing D&D in their basement
Mhm.
is because at its surface everybody was getting upset over what was going on in the game
Right.
or in the anime.
Hmm.
So it just seems like that was just the actual plot. But if you're really thinking about it from the perspective of there's just two dudes playing a game in their basement, does that change the outcome at all? As you could have the game master setting it up. So that's how bad these goblins are.
Hmm.
Yeah, and as a dungeon master myself, like you have to do that sometimes. Like you have to set up the enemy properly if that's going to be the main focus of your quest or the main focus of one of your regular players.
Yeah.
Right. Which brings me back to it to make me state, are we thinking too much about the anime when we're watching it?
I mean,
I mean,
usually when it comes to me and watching anime, it's like I will watch the anime through, and so like when I'm done with either with like that season or the series, I usually just think about, people. Sorry, usually the characters and its plot progression. How does it impact the story overall? How does it make me feel about the characters overall? And like, if there was more of this made, would I want to see it?
Hmm.
right. But that's why that whole thing of it being about the gods playing D&D in their basement kind of turns the whole thing on its head
And they
because it
didn't
makes the viewer think, am I thinking too much?
right, and they didn't bring that up until much later in the season, which is what I really love. Like they definitely very overtly hinted at it for a long time, but they didn't actually say it outright until near the end of the first season, meaning
Right.
that you potentially went through that whole thing focusing on the anime because you didn't know any better, and then having that change of paradigm completely shifting it, which is partly why I think, to an extent, it is somewhat deep. But to what extent, it's hard to say because it's just a very well made piece of media. And as someone who works in the film industry and has previously been a film critic, I will be the first to say just because something is well made and feels deep doesn't mean it is deep. So I'm waiting for season 2 to know whether or not I can really say whether it's deep or just really cleverly done.
And
Right.
when did
Yeah,
they
I
say
think
that?
a lot of people like to say that something is deep or thought provoking or this and that just to validate liking it more than
I
actually
mean,
giving it some
especially
actual.
if they feel like they get it and it wasn't something explicitly said. For example, The Matrix, a lot of people are like, oh, it's so deep and philosophical. I mean, yes, it's philosophical. Yes, it goes into some deep subjects, but especially in the sequels, it's very on the nose. What kind of gets me is that there's a lot of subtle nuances and subtle hints at things in the Matrix films that most of the time people overlook because they're so focused on being proud of themselves for noticing the really obvious things that ruin all of the subtle nuances.
Right.
But I just think that people shouldn't feel bad if they enjoy something that's simple in its
Well, yeah, I
storytelling.
mean, I really, really enjoy the first season of Sword Art Online. It has a lot of problems, it's not very deep, and it definitely could have been done better in a lot of ways.
It's just
But
a
it was
cute
fun.
anime.
Yeah, it like Sword Art Online is just fun for me.
Right. And
I
there's
think
nothing
'cause-
wrong with a fun anime, but when you have thought provoking things within it, it makes you kind of want to go back to it and watch it as opposed to just blobbing out. Because sometimes blobbing out just gets boring.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and there. Are,
And
sorry, go ahead.
oh, sorry, you can go ahead.
I don't remember what I was gonna say. I instantly forgot as I started speaking. So just
Oh, well,
I
it's
just
just
don't
that.
think that people should actively seek things that are thought provoking or deep, whatever word you want to use. Just find something you enjoy, and if you come across that those fancy descriptions, then you found it.
Hmm.
But don't try to
Right.
oversell an anime or a movie or anything for that matter.
Right, but they're not overselling it. They're just putting it into the writing. And it's left for the viewer to absorb.
Well, yeah,
There has
I
been
was
no
talking about the
statements about
viewer when
this.
they recommend it to other people.
yeah, he's talking about when we're doing stuff like this. If we were just to all pile on and go, Goblin Slayer's the best anime of all time, it really sucks my dick good.
Well, yeah, but we're also presenting an argument and we're just breaking it down.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah.
as far as an argument as for why it might be deep, if you really think about it, it's its own little world that are created by two people in a basement playing D&D. So, it comes down to that concept of, is God cruel?
Mm.
I mean, I don't know if anybody else thought about that,
I
but
mean, the only thing I really thought about was a question that I often rattle around in my head, which is if you take just any campaign that you run in D&D or some other tabletop game, would it make for a decent story even if you kept in all of the silly, all of the weird quirks that players bring to the table?
right.
I think the
But
answer is apparently yes.
I mean, yes, that's true. But I'm more of thinking that they created their own world without knowing it, and what the decisions that they're making are impacting the people within that world.
Oh, so you're saying more of like a what's it called? I can't remember what it's called, but there's a concept of you creating a world by writing it or thinking of it,
Right.
which I wish I remembered the term for it. There's some kind of mythological creature, but I just cannot remember it for the life of me. But yeah, no, I kind of get what I kind of get that. So like you're thinking maybe in the anime, either metaphorically or even possibly literally, this world was created by uh, the D&D players.
Right. Which is why I made that statement about the gods being cruel.
Mm.
Because if you really think about it, all these goblins are coming out of nowhere. And they seem to be a lot nastier than a lot of people are assuming within this world.
Mm-hmm.
But why is that? Why are the people unaware of how dangerous these creatures are?
Well, I mean, part of it is explained. A lot of people in that world just don't bother with goblins because they assume that they're weak. They just tend to not mess with them that much. And then by the time they are, how do I want to phrase this? By the time they're strong enough to be able to exterminate an entire cave full of goblins, they don't really have to worry about it anymore.
I guess that's true, but then when you go to their reward system, it seems like they're not rewarded a lot for goblins, which is why a lot of people tend to assume that they're weaker.
Well, there's also the fact that until the events that occur in the anime, goblins tend to not be as big of a problem. Like they did seem to become more of a problem than they were in the past.
Which I am actually looking forward to a second season to figure out why that is.
Oh, me too.
That's the big driver there. I mean, whether or not it's a fake world or not, it's still a lot of
Or
fun
I
to
guess the
watch.
question is how much of the world is real versus how much is fake, because that was the big question in Log Horizon, which at some point, because I love Log Horizon so much, but at some point I'm going to have to read the light novels because I don't think they're going to get a season 3 for Log Horizon. But one of the things that they brought up was the fact that essentially this world is the world of a game that they played in their world, but then there are these other creatures from a completely different, dimension that are also here, just utilizing the sources of what technically was a game, which means it was still originally a game. It never wasn't a game. So how much of it is real versus how much is fake or created? Like what parts of the new world in Log Horizon, for example, are part of the new world or something just taken from the game? Because it starts to change, and a lot of people notice it started to change from what it used to be as a game. Like a lot of things started changing, and they pointed it out pretty explicitly in season 2. So in Goblin Slayer, how much of it is a game versus, how much is legitimately its own world, unique to the world created by whatever ended up creating this universe.
Right, and I felt like a little bit was answered when they came to the underground sewer where they found the wall paintings of the gods
Mm-hmm.
throwing their dice, because it gave a very meta feeling of they were aware that the gods were playing a game,
Right.
like gambling their lives away.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting thing. If you knew that there were gods and that they were literally just gambling with people's lives and you had no control over it, like how nihilistic would you be, or would you be nihilistic at all at that point? Like, doesn't matter what I do, it's the gods' will.
I think that goes back to cosmic horror,
Mm.
which, if you really think about it, it's that idea that there's nothing we can do. So you can either freeze up and be terrified by the whole thing, or you can go with the flow and just live life to your own potential.
Just hope for the best.
Right.
Yeah.
Or break your fate. Drill towards the heavens. Okay,
Oh god.
I got that in.
My
Nice.
drill is the one that will pierce the heavens.
Keep going.
Come on, Simone.
Believe in
gotta
the me
do
that
this.
believes in you.
Believe in the me that believes in you.
Believe in the heart of the cards.
God dang it.
Or dice.
Wait, is this just
I
is
don't
I'm
Goblin
know.
staying
Slayer
quiet
just
because I think I understand the reference, but at the same time I don't.
is Goblin Slayer just a very long reference to Dungeon Dice Monsters?
Maybe.
Might be.
Or
Maybe.
inspired
Or
by
just
it.
like or anything based off of a board game that involves anyone in a suit of armor fighting some kind of mythical monsters.
Well, here's a question since we
Well, you
started
could say
getting onto
Full
the
Metal is
subject.
that.
Goblins.
How many people here actually play tabletop RPGs?
I do not.
I have. I haven't played for a while though. So.
Mm.
I haven't seen a board game in 31 years.
I tried once, and I hated myself for it.
Uh,
Never again.
well, I'll talk to y'all more about this after this stream, but I do have an idea for a campaign if any of you want to join. But that aside, I think it does kind of affect people's impressions of the show, whether you have or have not played, or at the very least understand how things are done in tabletop RPGs.
Right, which is why I said it completely changes the ball game once you realize it's just a couple of guys.
Konosuba is
Playing
kind of the
D&D
same way.
in
Not
the basement.
like Konosuba is a very good adaptation of a D&D campaign, just with players who give less of a shit.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
I feel like
they-
I feel like when it comes to that, Konosuba and Goblin Slayer are like two sides of the same coin. One of them involves players that are really into the whole deal of, defeating the monsters and trying to save the world. But then Konosuba is just pulling whatever comes out of their ass.
Yep. Well, and they
The-
kind of the
Con-
writers approach it the same way I'll approach a joke or a fun campaign like that as a DM, which is if things just start getting boring, I'll just introduce a new character. And that's literally how they said they write the manga, is that when they feel like the characters might get a little stale, they'll introduce someone new, either temporarily or permanently to the story
Yeah,
to change it up.
beautiful.
And they're just they literally said they're gonna keep writing until they get completely bored and they can't come up with something new.
I want to rag on something, but I know I shouldn't because I will anger a lot of people.
I've only seen a couple of episodes of Konosuba, and compared to Goblin Slayer, it looks more of a quote unquote eye candy type of anime.
Well, it's
I haven't
it's a
watched
cynical
Konosuba.
comedy, which
Right.
cynicism and comedy are two of my favorite things in the universe.
I'm
I
not
have-
judging its story. I don't know much yet. I'm just going by how it looks.
Right.
I
Well, I mean
haven't
that-
seen
yeah.
Konosuba in its entirety from what I've seen, but from what I've seen, it does seem like there is some action here and there, but for the most part, it's just a bunch of people cracking some jokes and just weird stuff.
Yeah, it's just the writers having fun with characters. And one thing that I like is that they have no intention of having the characters like mature or grow. Maybe a little bit, but not that much. Like they created these characters to have fun with them, and that's it. So if you're going into it for like character development, you're not going into Konosuba for the right reasons.
That whole story, all of those characters. At the end of watching each episode, I always feel a little more dead inside.
So does Kazuma.
Well, yeah, but then again, he's got a little livelihood stealing people's underwear.
True.
And that
What?
one blonde girl that apparently gets turned on from being rejected.
Oh yeah, she's
no,
she's a masochist.
Not rejected. She gets turned on from any sort of physical abuse. Oh my
Well,
god.
physical or mental abuse she gets turned
Right.
on by.
Because,
She's-
like,
At
the
one
only
point, she
scene-
begs them to tie her to the back of a stagecoach and drag her.
But what I love is that like everyone around them
shit was
has
ridiculous.
a solid head on their shoulders.
Right.
So when she has to go up against the Doulahan, and she's just like, oh, I bet you have to take me back to your lair and do all sorts of unspeakable things to me, and like acting all defiant, and he's just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. No, that's not what I'm. What the fuck?
Yeah, because it's like I haven't watched Konosuba in its entirety, but as soon as I've seen like this one scene where it's like where it seems that she's trying to like block the other two from getting hit, apparently, and it's like I forgot the main character's name, but it's like, please don't hit them. Just like hit me instead, and then like the guy was just like no, and then this girl's just freaking orgasms. Like what? Just like hit me instead, no, and then she says like like. And it's just like, oh, so she's one of those characters.
Yeah, Darkness is one of those.
Yep.
Cases.
Then of course there's Megumin, which is somehow a chunibyo in a real fantasy world. And it's like, I didn't think that was possible, but they made it possible. And again, that's one of those things, just to circle it back to D&D. Like, those are some really accurate, like, I guarantee you the writers of Konosuba have played D&D and know players like this.
I bet
Or
you that's
at
where
least
they
some
get their
type of-
character ideas. They
Yeah.
just all play D&D and they're just like, okay, we created another failure. Let's drop it into the anime.
I can see it. Although it's also a really good, I think, storytelling tool, tabletop, just in general, because it forces you to stick to certain rules, and that can be very important for a story. So if you're lost, maybe just, role play with some people in one system or another, and see how that turns out, and write that down. I've had that idea before, although I've never put it into practice because, as I've said to some of y'all before, I hate writing. I have so many ideas, and I'm very good at writing, but I hate it, so I don't do it.
Yeah, and I love to draw, and I have so many ideas for all the kinds of stupid things that I draw for clicks. But at the same time, it's like, but then I have to sketch it, and then I have to draw hands, and I hate drawing hands because it's impossible.
I'm a
And I
gunpla
have to, like,
builder.
and then I have to upload it to my computer so I could digitalize it, and then I have to like make it look nice.
I'm
I
a gun.
understand that pain.
Well, I'm a
Me too,
gunpla builder, and the time it takes to build one is long, very long, especially the master grades and the perfect grades. But it's worth it in the end because of the final product. I mean, I hate putting a Gundam together, but I've got a nice collection. It's just looking right at me from my shelf.
I mean, usually the best things come from hard work. So if you just put enough
Yeah.
effort into it, you get one of the best results in the end. Or if you're
Humankind
lazy-
cannot gain anything without first giving something in return.
God damn it.
Right. Like selling your soul. as
Okay,
Satan.
so
Good.
I
Too bad
kind
those
of
kids
really
cost an arm, a leg, and your little brother Alphonse.
that reminds me. I think at one point we definitely need to talk about Full Metal Alchemist.
Hmm.
Right?
We definitely do, but another time because we already have our subject for today.
Let's stay on
Right.
subject, people.
We're just going to stray away further from it.
Every day we stray further from God.
At this
I don't.
point, I don't know if you even call it straying away. It's just keeping a safe distance.
Yeah, I'm keeping the legal distance as court ordered from God.
Hmm.
Goblin.
I have a feeling like I forgot the term for it. Like a, I guess, what did they call it again? Just like
Goblins.
papers that you use to stay away from people. I forgot what they're called.
Restraining
What are
order
they
on the
called
goblin?
again?
Restraining order.
That thing.
I
That
forgot what it
you
was
said.
called. I was issued like 3, you know.
Ooh. Okay.
Tisk, tisk,
I'm sure
tisk.
you were, Josh. I'm sure you were. It's okay. Let it all
Anywho,
out.
back on topic with Goblin Slayer.
Thank you. Goblin.
I mean, to be fair, this is kind of a loose format anyway for this podcast, so it's not as important as other podcasts to stay on topic, but we'll try. We'll try to stay on topic. Do y'all have any other thoughts? Because we've kind of just died out here.
I think we just. I think we.
Yeah, I
There's
think
not
it's
much-
like the more we talk about Goblin Slayer, the more that we manage to connect things to Goblin Slayer, and then just trail off from there.
Yeah,
it feels
we're
like
just
it
gonna have to at
tangents a
some
lot.
point come up with
Yeah.
the grand unified Goblin Slayer theory.
Yes.
My theory is,
grand
it's
fury of
obvious that the gods are playing D&D. But
And that all
what?
other anime are just other
D&D?
campaigns that they played in their off time.
What if D&D
you know what?
wasn't
What about if Haruhi Suzumiya was pissed off one day and just decided to nuke the world and come up with something?
What if
I don't
Haruhi
fucking know.
Suzumiya started playing D&D?
Ooh. I mean,
What if she
Like,
was
if
among the gods playing D&D
If
and
they
You
just
Goblin
can't
Slayer?
prove she
there's-
wasn't.
I wonder if.
Damn it. I
Wait,
have a theory that
can you
No
see
Game
her
No
playing
Life,
the elf?
Konosuba, and Goblin Slayer are all connected. The end.
Ooh.
I can see that.
I mean,
I could see her playing a version of it that Itsuki would devise to keep her from getting bored.
I'm just saying, I could definitely see her playing the elf in Goblin Slayer.
for me, I feel like I'd just be that one background character that's not relevant until like close to the end.
Alrighty then.
Yeah.
You know, I just realized I wanted this podcast to be loose and fun, and I ended up trying to stay relevant to modern times. I ended up
just, like,
making
so relevant.
a super dramatic topic for our first episode.
Yeah, it's just like,
Yeah, but yeah.
Problem is, I'm an oldie anime fan, so I don't know much. I don't know the big shows.
for me, it's like I started out by watching whatever was popular at that moment, and then when it comes to that, I start try to make myself more diverse in the animes that I'd watch. Because I think at a couple years ago, the most like messed up anime that I've watched up to date had to be the original Berserk. And like the last episode that they animated with Griffin and Casca and that weird death egg thingy, it was just, oh god.
Maybe instead of focusing on one anime, we can focus on a topic in which certain animes fall under.
Well, the
Yeah, that
idea was
works
just
too.
to have a prompt that we don't necessarily have to stay on topic for. The prompt just gets us going.
Right.
So we did stay a little bit more on topic than I expected this time. And I think it's
Right.
possibly because the prompt was a little too specific.
Now, another anime that really makes me suspicious as to whether it might be a tabletop game or not is Re:Zero.
I mean,
Well, it's more of
there's so
a
many
video game.
More
Right.
video game. Right, because he keeps coming back,
Right.
respawning.
One thing I
Yeah.
find interesting about
Every time he
ReZero,
dies, he goes back to like a safe spot.
right? But the one thing I find interesting about ReZero is that like there is no context given to his former life, like at all. He's just there, and then he's pulled into the new world.
Well, actually, didn't they just pull him
Just
away
like Shield
from like
Hero.
the store?
Well, yeah, I mean, like that's all you see. Like he walks out of the store, and then he just gets pulled into the new world.
Actually, didn't he say he was a hikikomori?
Yeah, he did, but it still
So that
doesn't
would be
like
why.
that's
It
the
doesn't
only
even.
like that's the only insight to his outside world or experience that we have. So I think the idea was that they just created a character who wasn't going to have a life outside of this world,
Right,
but he needed to have a reason to not understand what's going on.
right, and a reason to live.
Right.
I feel like that was just it's kind of a lesson being taught to him that he can live through experiences.
I
guess.
came across an interesting theory a while back about Emilia being his kind of false ideal of his life, or no, sorry, Rem being a false ideal of his life, or a flawed ideal of his life that's safe and that can protect him, but what he seeks, actually living, not being a hikikomori, and like you said, just actually living, would be Emilia, and that's why he should end up with Emilia in the end, because the symbolism of it is that that is him maturing as a person. I thought it
But if
was
that's
somewhat
true,
interesting.
where does that place Ram?
Ram is there for moral support, obviously, and for occasional threesomes.
Or occasional meme material.
Well, I meant in the theory, but that
It wasn't brought
Or
up
eye
in the
candy.
theory that I remember.
Hmm.
I was really sad that they didn't expand more on that story.
Yeah. Well, anyway, want to go ahead and end it here, guys?
Might be a good
Sure.
idea.
I mean, hopefully, if you even, I don't even know if you heard this. I'm just playing music in the background calmly.
Yeah, we noticed, but
Okay.
Not a good idea.
we'll
Not a good sign.
we'll
All
try
right,
again
sorry.
next week and see how that goes. Until then, this has been World War Weeb, the chillest war in all of existence, apparently.
Yeah, it's no, it's literally just both sides watching each other from both spectrums. No one's firing anything yet.
Fine. I'll say something controversial to stir up the
Oh
audience.
Oh
boy.
boy.
Oh
Here we
Oh
go.
God,
boy.
no, no.
Just
Well,
shut
Lord.
up.
if you're a Gundam fan, at least.
Oh no.
Oh boy.
Gundam
Let's
Wing
see.
is the best. Gundam Seed and Gundam Seed Destiny are great. Change my mind.
Oh my.
And we're gonna stop streaming there. Okay, bye.